if you had to keep just one skill that you've acquired
Sales,
over
persuasion, and influence.
sales
Persuasion and
and
influence.
influence. Sales, persuasion, and influence.
Yeah, it's the number one skill. Everybody needs it. Doesn't matter if you're trying to get your kids to do some shit,
Yeah.
they don't want to do it, or if you're trying to get a big client to sign the dotted line on a real estate contract or something. Yeah. It's look, we're all humans, and at the end of the day, yeah, there's a million slick one-liners and little things you can do. But if you really understand how to persuade and influence somebody by understanding human emotion and how the psychology works, you can use that skill in any business.
Well, I think we're good to go. So we've got another episode of Adversity Kings. I got special guest Cody Sperber, and another special guest, Roger. How do I pronounce the last name?
Rojas.
Yeah,
in Miami, man, you got to pick up that accent.
Rojas. So
Rojas.
Look, my girl speaks like fluently Hebrew. That's her first language.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, you can't roll the R. The R in Hebrew is more of a like a her, like from the back of the throat. Ugh. So I'm trying, literally like that. It's like, it's like that. So, and I'm trying to learn both languages at the same time. So with Spanish, it's rolling the R. With Hebrew, it's like, you know what I mean? Like from the back of the throat.
You got work.
I got a lot of work, but that's the least of our worries. We're trying to build an insurance deal right now. But very excited you guys were able to hop on. We'll jump right into it and start figuring out everybody's story. We won't do the cheesy open up. Tell me about yourself. But I think we'll recap. We spent the day on the boat yesterday. That was fun.
That was fly.
Yeah.
Very Miami.
Very Miami.
On a Sunday.
Yeah. I always see you out there. It's always a good time. Like Roger's going to be out here. He's going to be plugged in with somebody. I'm about to learn something new. So awesome, man. So where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in Pennsylvania, but I moved very early, 5 weeks old, to Arizona. So I pretty much grew up in Arizona.
Yeah.
And lived a couple other states, Texas, Colorado, but always ended up back in Arizona. My dad was a pro at getting fired every 2 years.
Yeah.
So every time he got fired, we got shipped back to Arizona and started over. And then I also was in the Navy for a few years. So I was stationed in San Diego, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah, but after that, went back to Arizona, went to ASU.
Yeah.
While I was in college, got into real estate. And real estate's very localized. Like once you build those relationships around town and stuff like that, it's something that, you want to triple down on.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah. So kind of hard to leave now. And then older, got kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
All that stuff. So I'm stuck there.
Yeah.
At least for now. But I want a spot in Miami.
Yo, you got to get a spot in Miami. How long are you here checking things out?
Well, I actually didn't even come to Miami until just like 2.5 years ago for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like mind bending.
Yeah.
You're like, this exists? Like,
yeah.
Okay. I need a spot here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sick. Roger, where were you born?
I was born here in Miami.
Wow.
Yeah. Miami Beach, Mount Sinai. So I spent the first 18 years of my life here.
Yeah.
And then I'm one of 5, and I'm the 4th, and I was the first one that decided to leave home. So I decided to head over to some would consider upstate New York, New Rochelle, New York, to Iona University, and spent 4 years there, did my undergrad, spent another 4 post-grad there, and then now I've been in LA for the past 5.
And then what's the nationality for you?
My father's Cuban and my mom's Colombian.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where the Rojas comes in.
Rojas. The Colombian, I think of, is it Escobar with the Blanco Ploma?
Yep, there it is.
You watch any documentaries or anything like that with Escobar? Bro, that's
of course. Once you find, actually, a lot of people, I don't know if Cody, I didn't know that your first time in Miami was 2.5 years ago. That's pretty.
First time.
That is nice.
Yeah. And I think what I've learned is through, especially like Miami culture, a lot of that, the buildings and stuff that was built came from the drug money.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Most of it, right?
Yeah. 1,000%.
And I think that part of interesting, especially just in real estate as a whole, of like now the market.
Not connecting all that together, but didn't your grandpa or somebody build some of these buildings?
Yeah. So I never really talk about
No, I'm not connecting that. I'm just saying like your family did some real estate stuff or something.
My second grandfather was a developer.
Wow.
So the building that I grew up in, he built that, and a handful of other ones on Brickell Ave. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So fine, we'll talk about it. I've never spoken. The building's actually named after my sister. So it's called Villa Regina. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You got to check me on this one. It's either 1988 or 1989. It's a Guinness Book of World Records. So it's the largest piece of work of art.
Yeah.
So the actual colorful it was named after his mother, his belated mother, but he also, my second grandfather, loved my sister.
Wow.
And so he named it Villa Regina. Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, bro. That's sick. Super sick. So we were talking the other day, Cody, in regard to kind of your come up, a little bit of a rougher childhood, and then you get into the military. You didn't want to get into the military, but how did the military kind of shape your life into the man that you are now?
Best experience. I think every kid needs to go in the military.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wasn't cut for college at that time. I actually tried to go to college for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
I went to one class for like 2 hours, 3 hours, and then I went back to my car and never went back. So I knew I wasn't ready for college yet. And when you go in the military, I went in when I was 18. So it's like, you don't have discipline really. And I didn't play a lot of sports. I think that's the other piece. Like I know, like my daughter is in sports. She's a professional, like level 6 world champion cheerleader, right? Like travels the world, does all kinds of major competitions. She has that structure, that discipline, that work ethic at a very young age. I didn't. I was more running the streets, hustling and doing stuff like that. And so when I got in the military, it was like everything changed. It's like focus on your health, focus on your discipline, focus on like care about the details, learn about systems, get used to people kicking your ass and telling you what the fuck to do. And you don't have a choice. It's not like I can quit and go home.
Yeah.
You know, they
1,000%.
Like they work you. And trust me, I tried. Like I was calling my dad crying, like, you got to get me the fuck out of here. Like, this is nuts. Like, I don't know why I decided to do this. Yeah. Best move ever though. Cause you travel the world, you really grow a deep appreciation for America.
Yeah.
Because I saw this lady get her teeth kicked in by her husband. When we pulled into Pakistan, we weren't allowed off the ship because there was these rules. It was like very dangerous. And so we were just on the side of the pier looking down, and this guy was working. He was like at the guard shack, and she would bring him lunch every single day. And one day, I don't know what happened, but obviously she brought him the wrong thing. And next thing you know, he's beating the shit out of her. And there's like 14 of us up on the side of the ship. Like we wanted off that ship so bad to go kick that guy's ass, you know, but it was just a different culture, a different energy. So you grow this appreciation, like, damn, there's really, when I got out, I just felt like if I could do that, and I saw what the rest of the world was like, we went to like 20, 30 different countries. Yeah. I got it made. I have no excuses. I have to light the world on fire because I have everything lined up for me. The right laws, the right support system, the right access to information, everything. Yeah. And if I fail at this life compared to some kid growing up in Vietnam where the average medium income is $1,500 or $1,800, it's probably like $1,800 a year. Yeah. That they're surviving off of. And here I am in America making excuses, acting like a bitch. Yeah. Like I'm not going to do that. And so, yeah, it was a power move, but I also knew that I wasn't a lifer. I wanted in and out. I wanted to get my life started. Yeah. And then that led into, you leave the military and your parents like, you got to find a job. I think very quickly you kind of found one of your buddies did the wholesale flip. Well, I was going to college and, I didn't have a lot of successful people growing up around me. So, you go to your dad and you're like, Dad, what should I do with my life? And he's like, you should probably go get a degree now that you're like older and more ready, or start a business or something like that. And didn't really have a path. I thought maybe I'd be a history teacher or something like that. And so my dad talked me into getting a degree in finance with a minor in accounting. Yeah. And he's like, this is the language of business. Like, even if you don't use this shit, you'll be able to like talk business with people. And he always said he wished he always did that. Yeah. And so I went to ASU and I had the MGI Bill paying for it. And I had a Pell Grant, paid me $6,000 a quarter to go or something like that. So I was like kind of making money to go to college. It was like a little bit of another hustle for me. I was like, all right, I'll show up. I was getting good grades and maybe thinking about being a stock trader or something. And then all of a sudden my friend Jeremy asked me to go to lunch, pulls up in a dope ass whip. And I said, how'd you get the car? He said, I flipped the house, made 80 G's. And I'm like, where'd you get the money to buy a house? He's like, oh, you don't need money. I said, well, did you use your credit? He's like, oh, you don't need credit. I said, well, how did you even find a house? He goes, oh, there's this whole process out there. These people are doing this thing called wholesaling. Let me show you what it is. And he grabs a napkin, pencils it all out. Long story short, by the end of the meeting, I took that napkin. I had like 1,000 questions because I was just like, this is bullshit. This doesn't make sense. Like, this has to be illegal. This is a scam. Like everything. If I told any one of you like, hey, I could show you in the next 1 hour how to flip a house and get paid within the next 30 days with no money, no credit, no risk whatsoever, and you're going to make between $10,000 to $30,000 or more, you'd be like, bullshit.
Yeah.
And maybe now more they're open to it because they see it on social. But back in 2002, this did not, there was no information.
There was no social media. Instagram.
There was nothing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I took that napkin and that thing changed my life because now I'm starting to like think, what if this is real? You know, the wealthiest people in the world do real estate. It's the most tried and true wealth builder ever. Everybody makes their money in a business and parks it in real estate, or they do real estate and buy more real estate. Like it's such a great industry. And there was a guy when I was a little kid, his name's Michael Polak. You can look him up. He's like a Donald Trump type character, big afro, like crazy guy. And he owned all the real estate in Arizona and he had his name on the side of every building. So like your uncle putting your sister's name on the side of that building, like that was my dream. I just didn't know. It was like a subconscious thing walking by these buildings as a kid, seeing Polak Investments, Polak Cinemas, Polak this, Polak Street Corner, whatever. And so now years later, I'm down this rabbit hole trying to figure out how do I flip a house with no money? It took me 14 months, went to 24 seminars, bought every course, book, and tape under the sun, struggled, did not do a deal for 14 months, actually quit and unquit at some point, found a mentor. And within 2 months of finding my mentor, I did my first deal, made 40 G's, changed my life.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How old were you when that happened?
Huh?
How old were you?
Well, it was 2003, right around that time. So, I don't know, early 20s, 20, 23, something like that. And it's like it's like Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile. Like nobody ever did that.
Yeah.
And then this guy comes along and does something that everybody considered impossible. All the experts in the world said you'd have to have the perfect weather and no wind against you. And like the clay density would have to be a certain thing. And like, could the bones even handle that kind of pressure at speeds and nobody had ever done it. So it's like a concept, but people didn't know. Well, when you do your first real estate deal, you go from like hope to knowing, like you know in your core, like this shit's real. I can do this. Real people are doing this, and I could do it again and again and again if I just get serious about it. And now, how many athletes have ran the 4-minute mile?
Yeah, like happening every day.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds.
I actually think
like
either it was today or yesterday that a kid just broke the mile at 3:56.
That's what I was like, we got to be in trees.
It was 3:50 today or yesterday. Yeah. And then the first comment I see, imagine running a 4-minute mile and losing. And it's the standard in which I think what you're getting
the
out
world's
of it.
evolved now. And now a lot of people, when it's been done, everybody's like, oh shit, planes fly. Okay, I got this. We're going to go. And so once you do, I always encourage people like, dude, I had a student come to me. I've had over 80,000 students come through my programs. I had this one lady, she was from like Trinidad. She's never done a real estate deal in her life. And this is years ago. She said, Cody, what's the first thing I should do? And I said, we got to get you used to talking to people. So go on to this is a long time ago. Go on to Craigslist, find some for sale by owner listings, and just start calling people and talking to them about their houses. Like, don't be slick. Don't have a script. Don't be smooth. Like, just talk to people and ask them why they're selling. Ask them what they want for their house. See if there's a deal that you can work just off your core intuition of like what to say next without any skills or anything. 1 hour calling, she calls me back and goes, I think I got a deal. And next thing you know, she closes a deal and made like $60,000 off a 1 hour training session where she was just randomly calling some FSBOs. She closes the deal like a couple weeks later and she's like, I can't believe I've been doing this my whole life. This is the easiest thing ever. And I'm thinking to myself, oh girl, you have no idea how hard this business actually is. You got lucky. You put yourself in the game. You made a call. You got lucky. You made a thing. It ain't going to be like that because it took me 14 months, $30,000 credit card debt, a million voices saying, quit, change directions. This isn't right. Like you should be serious about school. Stop fucking around. Like my parents, my girlfriend, everybody, my self-limiting beliefs. You look too young. You don't have any money. You're like that imposter syndrome shit. Yeah. So it's different for everybody, but I always encourage them, as long as you stay the course, you will eventually do a deal. And once you do one, it's impossible to go backwards. It's like sitting on a plane first class. Once you experience the warm nuts,
literally,
and like seriously, and everybody walking by you,
the warm towel.
The warm towel, you got the little and they're serving you before you even take off, and you got the extra leg room. You're like, fuck that, I'm not flying Spirit anymore. Like, I don't want to go back there anymore.
Yeah. I'm at that place where it's like I refuse to like not fly less than first, but also like flying internationally first is still like, oh, okay, $25,000 to fly there. We're just not going.
Not yet.
We're not going yet. We're not going yet. Dude, I love hearing your story. Let's transition real quick. You have an incredible story as well. The connections you have, connecting me essentially with Cody, and shout out to you and Eric, everybody that did. Connections are insane. So I want to talk to you both about law of exposure, but I want to talk to you about exposure and networking, because I meet a lot of people in Miami. I've met a decent amount of people in Miami. I haven't met a Roger, somebody that can kind of like, it's almost like you're like, I've heard and I've kind of seen Dan put together just these connections. Mm-hmm. And I look at you and I'm like, you're like I don't know like how the best way to say it, I guess like a pupil of Dan. Like you do the
100%.
same thing.
Yeah.
And the sale was like, I can connect you here, I can connect you with this, be here at this time. Like literally today, I'm just waiting. I wasn't even anticipating. I was like, I probably won't get a text. I'll reach out in a month. Yo, meet us here at 5, we'll do a podcast. And I'm like, holy shit.
Go time, baby.
Go time.
Super connector.
Super connector, which is like an invaluable skill. Like you can't put a price on that. So how did you build that? How did your life come to be this connector and be this connected?
Two things. I would say someone who's exceptionally curious, that has allowed me to take on any job, talk to anyone. The biggest blessing my father gave me onto my life was when I was a young kid. I remember I was riding a bike. We would always, every Saturday morning, we'd go bike riding. And he purposely took me down this road that had a homeless person. You're going to go up to him, wish him well, and you're going to talk to him. I was like, yeah, but he's homeless. He goes, it doesn't matter. And I think about this all the time. He's like, the homeless guy, the janitor, the fast food person, the bus guy, say hi to everyone, treat everyone with respect. Purple, black, white, I don't care what color you are, I'm talking to you the same. And so I understood that of people. Being in Miami is another blessing because it's such a melting pot of Central and South America. Not one person's from the same country. Everyone's speaking Spanish, but if you know, Colombians don't speak like Mexicans. It's a melting pot. And growing up, I thought when I moved to New York to do my undergraduate, I realized how powerful that was of being exposed to at a young age. And then it was a moment, you're referencing Dan. So for those who don't know, for the past 5 years of my life, I've been working alongside Dan as his creative director and traveling the world with him, all his masterminds, all his charities, doing everything and anything that he tells me to. And during a podcast that I would sit in a lot of them, I would listen outside a document and take notes from him, even though I spend a lot of time with him, who here, when they experience, sometimes you forget how powerful that individual is because you spend so much time with them.
Yeah.
And so I always told myself when in podcast, I'm listening. I'm looking and I'm listening. And they said, if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be? Or how would you describe it? Or like, what would that thing be? And he said, relationships. And he's like, it's the fast forward button to life. Every time I'm in a room, every time I meet someone, I think of what city they're in, what they do. So when I hear problems, you become a solution. And this was early when I started working with him. And I thought to myself, wait, if I'm in every room that he's in, and I'm meeting the same type of person, I could be doing the same thing with my own network. And I could build those relationships, maybe not at the level that he was at and what he was doing, but I was like, it still applies. So we'd go to restaurants, managers, hostess, going into a concert, the driver that took us there, the guy that hit it off that he sounded really cool. If we were at a house, there's a private event going on, the chef that was working, the person that was cleaning up, the guy that was running security at the door, the person who was doing the lighting for the event.
Yeah.
And I just started getting number after number and number, connecting, seeing, because being in the events business, a lot of problems, or you're faced with a lot of problems. And so I knew financially I couldn't give to the level that Dan gives when it comes to charity, but I also knew my biggest asset was content mixed with relationships.
Yeah.
And I then realized that through the power of networking, 90% of the time it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And yes, you have consistent factors that are required. Everything that Cody referenced, I think in the military, I didn't serve. Thank you for serving, by the way. I've never told you that. But the idea is foundationally, the things that are required in life, show up on time, you're clean, you're organized, you show respect. Yes, you should have that across the board. But then you always think to yourself, how do you go above and beyond?
Yes.
How can you provide and show up in the way that they're not expecting you to? It doesn't have to be big, but it could be small. And I learned that through just showing up, being present and listening. and seeing the little problems of how I could show up and how I could service to the best of my abilities. And I genuinely just love people. I think that I love, I could talk to a wall, and, and I love, being cultured, and I love hearing stories. I love opportunities like this. Like I've seen you multiple times. And yesterday was the first time that we like chatted, right? And we heard it, like you heard my story and kind of the whole thing. And I think that is like the coolest part about life, is that like last time I checked, we only do this thing called life once. Yeah. And so if you're able to have cool conversations with and do life with meaningful people, then I think you're doing life right. And I think you're doing it in your way. And I think that's what makes it so special, is that Dan talks about this a lot. The butterfly effect. By connecting people and how they blossom and how they go off to do that special thing that they did. And it all derived from you just throwing them in a group text or saying, hey, these two individuals are having a problem that you could solve. And, seeing that prosper, right? And see that blossom to things. And I've seen that many, many times. And for me, I think that's the part that makes life cool. Being a spectator of that part of life, of not necessarily being involved, but saying, hey, I opened that door and that person decided to walk through it, and I just opened it. And that part of it, I think, is the coolest part.
I will say this about you, getting to know you really well over the last few years. You've done two other things. One, you say yes a lot. You really love life so much. You're like, yes. Like, you want to travel? Yes. You want to do this event? Yes. You want me to create this thing? Yes. I love how much you're willing to put yourself into new, unknown situations constantly and just have the boldness of saying yes. And while you do it, the second thing is you change the weather in every room you go into. Like, you're the thermostat. Like, you are one of my most fun connections I have. You know what I mean? Like, the world is full of so many boring ass adults. It's like, what happened to us when we were a little kid and we saw a puddle? What did we always do? We jumped in that puddle and splashed our friend next to us and had some fun. But something happened along the way. We were told no too many times, or people made fun of us, or something happened where we tampered down that enthusiasm for life and that energy. And we became a boring ass adult. And so now when somebody like Roger comes in the room and everybody else is here and he's up here and he's like, come on, let's go. Let's have fun. Let's do this. Come on, get excited with it. And he naturally forces you to, one, pivot and look at him. And then two, even though at first you're kind of like you kind of get this feeling of like, you're like pulling back a little bit because like you're so trained to like not lean in. You start to go, okay. All right. Next thing you know, you're salsa dancing a little bit. And you're having a little bit more fun. And then all of a sudden the party erupts and you're like, thank God I showed up. Thank God Roger's here, because he changed the weather in the room. Yeah.
Thank you for that, man.
You need people like that.
Fire.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. Super fire. So would you say your breakthrough, or so far, like one of the butterfly flecks in your life, was meeting Dan?
1,000%.
And I think you described it perfectly yesterday, how you, like, when you met Dan, he slipped you a note. You guys didn't even talk for 6 months. Can you share just a little bit of that experience?
So March of 2019, there's two things I want to share. It was an individual who at the time, now he's one of my best friends, he decided to throw an event. And it's an event that he looks back on that didn't play out the way he wanted, but I always tell him, I don't think that event was meant to play out in that way for you. I think you were the like life-changing person in so many people's lives that you don't know, including mine, that if that event would have never happened, I would have never met Dan. And I think a lot of times, the reason I share this is because I feel like a lot of times when something really bad happens in our life, or it doesn't play the way we want it to be, I think that's when you should go and think outside of yourself and be like, wait, there has to be a good in this. Yeah. I'm a very optimistic person too, but I truly believe that. And I like to share that moment because he's someone who I love. He's one of my best friends, Justin. And again, that event didn't play out the way he wanted, but there doesn't go a time. I recently had lunch with him and I just looked at him and was like, bro, like, thank God you threw that event. Because I was in the back of the room. I was filming Casey Adams, he's one of my close friends, and he was just blowing up. I was traveling around the country with him. Yeah. And Dan was there and his videographer wasn't there. And he slides me a sticky note, paid, no edit. And if you know Dan Fleischman, he's a man of very few words. Yeah. And at that point, I had no relationship with him. And I just looked at him. I said, thumbs up. An event was going on. Two things happened. One, I had no money for a mic. And I had just met a videographer 10 minutes before that who's in the back of the room with one. So I walk up to him and I say, hey, my client's about to go up. can I borrow that mic from you? And at the time, I had never messed around with a lavalier mic.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you where the button to turn it on was. Couldn't tell you what side was the receiver, what side was nothing.
Yeah.
So as he's taking it off, I'm joking with him and I'm like, hey, does this go on the client? Does this go on? And he's like, man, stop playing. I was like, this is how you turn it off, right? And he looks at me and I go, I'm just messing with you. Put it on Dan, having no idea if it turns on, if it's even working.
I love
Do you even have headphones?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even have a tripod. I wish there was a photo to find. I was in the front row holding my camera like this. And if any videographer knows, when you go like that, you start to crunch up, every muscle starts to soar up. And he ends up being up there for maybe, I think, 45 minutes to an hour. And I did something that I truly believe in any career that you do, and anyone being a creative, the moment you decide to go above and beyond for someone or do something, if you don't get something in return, not that you should expect it, you at least get the work ethic and then have that practice to yourself of like, hey, this was the standard, but I took a step further.
Yeah.
And so what I did, I decided to provide him an Instagram clip within 30 minutes of him getting off stage.
Yeah.
He asked me not to edit, but I did. And I made him a social clip. Not only did he pay me double of what I was expecting, 48 hours after that, he threw me in a group text. And if anyone knows Dan, he's the ultimate connector. And I thought to myself, this guy must be someone of influence or significance if he's throwing me in a group chat with him. Long and behold, he was a big music executive. And fast forward throughout the year, I become the creative director for this music company, spending time with him in the Hamptons in his home, shooting the 2019 VMAs, meeting a handful of artists because of him. And over the next 6 months, from that moment, I decided to go above and beyond. Dan started connecting me with all his friends. I worked with Cindy Eckert. She exited for $1 billion, creating the female Viagra, and endless people, one thing after another. And he sends me a text, hey, are you available November 1st through the 3rd of 2019? I said, yes. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to connect you with this person. We're going to fly you out to LA. I had no idea what the event was. I had no idea what was going on. To your point with Cody, what he said earlier, I said, yes.
Yeah.
I promise you, I landed at LAX airport. I didn't even know what hotel I was staying at.
Yeah.
And I'm calling this system. I was like, I don't know where I'm going. And what ended up being the first weekend of the $100 million mastermind experience.
Wow.
Where Cody was one of the attendees and members, where 100 people pay $100,000 to be in the room.
Wow.
And the level of influence and impact in that room was insane. I actually joked around and always thought if that room disappeared for a day, I think the internet would stop for like a half a second.
Yeah.
Because the amount of influence and kind of, just power that was in that room. And so the first night, it was a Beverly Hills mansion. I ended up filming him and being with Joel Marion, interviewing Mark Wahlberg. The next day, it's at Bill Zarian's house when he was living at the Bel Air mansion.
Yeah.
Chris Tucker's there. Tiger performs. Nick Cannon's the DJ. The next day, he rents out the Porsche Experience. Kris Jenner speaking. Magic Johnson. People are playing basketball. Dennis Rodman. Like,
wow.
It's ultimate experience throughout this whole weekend. From that moment I met him to that point, it was 6 months. I had never spoken to him. And so I wanted to give him my thanks. I'm texting one of my best friends like, dude, this guy's helped me and impacted me in so many ways. I want to give thanks to him, but I don't know what to say. He's like, just walk up to him and tell him thank you. I was like, all right. So I waited till then. He was at the tea kind of cafe spot. And again, I walk up to him and I immediately say, Dan, thank you so much for this weekend. I kept questioning my value of why I was in that room because being in LA, there's so many videographers, so many creators. And I think being someone who's been through it all and experienced it all, if you're a creative and you're starting out, you bet on yourself as much as you can and you remove the doubt by putting in the reps. And at that time, I didn't realize my value of kind of the workload I had put to be in that room because I kept questioning kind of, especially what you spoke about, 14 months of being a wholesaler and not. For me, it was 4.5 years in and I was still questioning my worth. And it was that moment where I finished this weekend of filming all these incredible people and I was still questioning, why me? I walk up to him, I say, Dan, thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity and being able to be here. And I remember this like yesterday, he's sipping on tea and he looks over at me and he goes, you don't know this yet, but you're moving to LA. And he walks off. And I was like, what? I was like,
Bro,
what? I was like, I was so confused. I was just like, what is going on? Man, long behold, 2020 came around, July 28th. I moved into a studio apartment in Hollywood, California, and it's been 5 years, and I've been at his side ever since.
That's insane, bro.
Yeah,
that's literally insane. And so, from your hearing of this, and already what you kind of already shared with Roger being a yes man, but also changing the environment of the room, bringing a positive energy. This is obviously kind of a redundant question. Being a yes man to the right people is a game changer in your life because being a yes man to the wrong people would be a negative game changer in your
The
life.
way I look at it, especially when you're young, especially when you're new and you're building, you're in build mode. My mentor used to always say this to me, but I didn't understand it till later. He would always say, Cody, yes, gets you out of Egypt, but no takes you to the promised land. And to take that and apply it towards this is like, in the beginning, you should say yes a lot. Maybe you're stuck in a job right now that it's not fulfilling you. You're not loving. Like, quit that work there for 6 months. You don't like it, quit, lateral over to a different industry, find whoever's great at the next thing. Like maybe you're in travel and you want to be in fashion. It's like, okay, go find somebody that's killing it in fashion and, work for them for 6 months and try to get proximity to somebody who's doing really good in that niche. Maybe you light up and you think, wow, this is my lane, this is my path. And maybe you don't. Maybe you kind of, I would rather be a creative. And you find a Roger out there. Do that while you're young. Eventually, though, you have to stop doing that if you want to become really great. You have to say no as you evolve. So like, yes, got him out of Egypt. But now, knowing Roger, he has to slowly now transition to saying yes to all the things and focus on the big needle movers of his life where he's at now. This dude's like an Inception, right? Like I've seen him literally, Dan will be on a stage doing a speech and
we did it at Clever Summit.
And at the end of the speech, Roger is in the back filming the whole speech, editing the whole thing, creating a 1-minute masterpiece of the speech, of the people in the audience, of the interaction. And it's like Inception. You're trying to figure out, is this real? Because Dan at the end of his speech goes, watch this, and shows the fully edited clip that would take a normal person, weeks to do. Yeah. He did it in minutes.
7 minutes at your place.
7 minutes?
Yeah, it was 11 minutes.
That's insane.
Speech, yeah.
And then plays it, and the whole audience is floored because they cannot believe that the world is moving that fast. Somebody can move that fast. Now, I don't know how long that'll last because we got AI now and other things to help, but it was really cool to watch him evolve from like the kid holding the thing all crunched up, trying to like just prove his worth to now becoming like a maestro at what he does. So now it's like, okay, what's the next level for Roger?
Yeah.
And he's got to start thinking like that. And the same in real estate, I would say yes to everything, but then you become one of the stupid entrepreneurs that think we could do it all, and you end up dying a death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Get what I'm saying?
1,000%.
Yeah. And so, like right now, I do 2 things, and that's it. I don't want to do another thing. You bring something else, I'll shut it down before you even finish the sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to dominate and become the world's greatest at my thing.
Yes. Those are the 2 things. It's Floor Daddy and then...
Floor Daddy and still Clever Investor.
Okay.
Yeah, I still love teaching, but I want to scale the flooring business. Now, I heard Clever Summit. I feel like I've been hearing that for years. No. Yeah, it's just an event I throw once a year. It's just an event? Is it okay? It's a big event. I was going to say, it's a pretty big event, I would imagine. Yeah, we got a couple thousand people, 2,000 to 3,000 people that show up. It's in the real estate space, but it's for entrepreneurs and investors. And
he knows how to party too. He had Rick Ross.
Yeah, we do.
I was going to say, it sounds like a really familiar event.
Look, making money and having fun.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to be the boring ass at all. I want to make money and have fun. So I'm going to rent out the club. I'm going to fly in Rick Ross and T.I. and Sickick and my favorite DJs. And I'm going to throw a party with all my favorite real estate people. And they've never been to an event like that.
Yeah.
You know where I learned that from?
Who?
I feel like we're giving Dan the biggest endorsement on this podcast
ever.
Go follow Dan Fleischman. Let's just get it out of the way right now. Just go follow his ass.
We didn't even say his full name. I was like, let's just be real cool. We won't even throw his name.
He's changed a lot of people's lives, so he deserves it. But yeah,
mine.
When we threw that $100 million, we spent $2.5 million on that. That was a big investment, in when we were kind of masterminding, like filling 100 mil and doing it all, like when he pitched us, like we're going to do this experiential mastermind and it's going to be unlike anything the world has ever seen. It's going to be this huge party and it's going to be, everybody's going to see it and the content's going to be like literally internet breaking. I was like, okay, I kind of get it, but why? And like my analytical brain was like, why would we spend so much money? And like, how are we going to make money? And Dan's like, we're not worried about making money on this thing. We're worried about breaking the internet. He saw even like the Dan Bilzerians of the world that like you optically you see it and it becomes bigger than life.
Yeah.
And he understood the value in that branding.
Yeah.
And how much more opportunities and doors and business and things that will come in the future. Where was I going with that? Oh, so I took that same concept, but I applied it to a boring real estate seminar.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden magic happened and I make $8 million at the event. And it was like, oh my God, I've been doing this event for 11 years.
Wow.
The standard way, put people in a room, talk at them, whatever.
Yeah, boring.
I switch it to experiential where it's like, no, now all my people got a workbook and it's very interactive with the audience. And then on Saturday night, we ran out the club and we party like rock stars and everybody comes in and they're like, what the frick just happened?
Yeah.
You know? And when you're having fun, the wallets open up, the energy, they're like, because all I got to say is this. Are you guys having a good time? Yeah. Can you imagine doing this for the next year with me? Everybody's like, And it's like, great. Here's what I'm putting together. Boom, boom, boom. Who wants to do this with me? We can lock arms. I'll teach you everything you need and I'll bring in all my best resources, everything that you need to technically do this business. But at the same time, we're going to have a really good time doing it.
Yeah.
And people don't even need to be sold at that point. They're just like, sign me up. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I went from making $1 to $2 million per event to making $8 to $9 million per event.
That's
big
insane.
difference.
All off experience.
I think a part that he brings up, and it's like people listening and watching, it's like the typical storyline here is the mentor part.
Yeah.
I think I've also realized in my life, someone may be in your life for a short period of time or a long period of time, but if you take the good from that and understand how you could apply it to your life today, that's how you're able to move the needle forward. Let it be a mentor, let it be a friend, and understanding that you don't have it all figured out and letting that ego come down. For me, that's like been one of the biggest game changers is mentorship and understanding that listen to the person that's walked before you is walking the walk.
Yeah.
It's the same way I would say I'm not taking advice of how to go work out if the person doesn't work out themselves.
1,000%.
They're putting in the reps, they're putting in the time, they have an understanding of it. But also too, they have the right intention and vision. Dan's a visionary.
Yeah.
He sees things before they play out and an outcome that can feel uncomfortable, can be weird. But the idea is like it makes you feel uncomfortable because you haven't gone there. And having people like that in your life is just so impactful because it allows you to continually evolve. Biologically, every day we're not the same, and life happens, things happen, life is lifing. And I think once you understand and comprehend that concept of like, all right, how do I consistently moving the needle forward? How am I pushing myself? How am I putting myself in the right room?
Yeah.
How am I showing up to places? How am I networking? How am I putting in the work, putting in the time?
Yes. 1,000%. What do you think was the big need, like your first big, I don't know, almost like quantum leap in your entrepreneurial journey? Like what was the first big thing that just kind of took you from maybe 6 figures to 7 figures?
I made 7 figures my first year in real estate. After it took me 14 months to do my first deal.
Yeah.
12 months later, I made 1.3 million.
And that was a lot of money.
I was the first millionaire of my family. I was the first multimillionaire in my family. I was the first kid to ever graduate college in my family. So
and that was before 2008.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of money. The $1 million. Yeah, but 20 years ago.
I fucking blew it. Like it's not like I had the money. As soon as I got it, I was a dipshit.
It was
with
in
it.
and
Oh
it was out.
yeah. Cars, clothes, travel, friends. Like I was like, you need a new outfit. Let's go shopping. Like I was just like, I was wilding out because I had nothing. You know, it's like you come from nothing. All of a sudden you got some dough, and you're also kind of a little young and cocky, and you're thinking, this shit's never gonna stop. I got it now. Like I am gonna. And then here's the big. This is a great lesson for all you young entrepreneurs out there. I stared at my tax returns and I'm like, fucking $1.3 million. I did it. Now, I didn't have that money and I spent it, but I'm like, I did it. I can't believe it. And then I open up the next piece of paper from the IRS and it said, you owe $500,000. And you're like, ugh, shit, I owe taxes.
Yeah.
I just thought I got to keep all the money I made. I didn't realize, like a dumb new entrepreneur, nobody told me like, hey dude, set aside 50% of every dollar you make because your real partner is Uncle Sam over there and he wants his cut.
Yeah.
And so I fucked up very early on and I'm really grateful that I did, but it caused me 4 years of pain. It was one of the best lessons I ever learned because it was like, I owe the IRS. There's no getting out of it. You pay it or go to jail.
Yeah.
And they're sending you letterhead every month that says interest accrued and your balance is going up. And at the same time, the letters on the top are getting bolder and redder and bigger and they're threatening. And it's like, we're going to lien you. We're going to take you to jail. and it's like, oh my God.
And you still have to pay current taxes on the money you're accumulating.
I was earning more money.
Yeah.
So my only plan, by the way, was just fucking sell my way out of this. Like do more. Okay. So that's my plan. The problem is, and this is like the rich dad, poor dad thing. It's like it doesn't matter. Even wholesaling's not really real estate investing. Wholesaling's a high paying job.
Yeah.
Because you're not really owning the houses.
Yeah.
You're just flipping contracts. And go look up wholesaling. There's tons of information out there. You're flipping a contract. So you're still in the earned income bucket. I'm not in the investment income. I don't get long-term capital gains. You have to shift away from earned income if you want to play the tax game to win. And so I made 1.3, and then the next year I made 1.8 or whatever. I owed taxes on that, and I owed back taxes on this. So I'm really not ever getting ahead. I'm just working to pay off my old debt that keeps accruing really high interest rates. And that's why it took me 4 years to get out of it. And they shut down my bank account one day. Because you owe federal and you owe state, right?
Yeah.
And so I was paying the federal, and the federal was kind of like not messing with me. The state came and literally did something where they filed something that went right into my Chase account and froze my accounts. So and I was just getting ready to go to Turks and Caicos. My girl at the time was putting pressure on me to do this once a year family trip, and I was like, oh, fuck, okay. And they shut my bank accounts down. I was maybe 2 years into the 4 years owing these taxes, and the state just froze my shit. And it's one of those things where it's like you fight your way out of it. 4 years later, I paid the last payment. And I never wanted to be in that situation again. And my mentor said, Cody, you got to start keeping more of the real estate that you are coming across because you need the depreciation. Depreciation is a tax write-off that lowers your amount that you owe. I haven't paid taxes in 7 years.
Wow.
Making tens of millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
That's because I own commercial real estate. That the IRS tells you, the government tells you what we want. We want affordable housing. We want real estate development. We want heavy machinery, heavy equipment. So rich people that go through this evolution, a lot of my friends that are rich, they went through the exact same thing. They were like, I didn't realize how I was making so much money and I owed all these taxes and I had to fix it. If you're young now, just get ahead of it now. Buy the commercial real estate. Single family is not the game, by the way. Commercial real estate's the game. Because with commercial real estate, you could do something called a cost segregation study, and you can accelerate the depreciation. So to give you a short example, I bought a $4.5 million building a couple years ago. And that building, at the time, Trump was in office, or just came out of office. And there was 100% bonus depreciation at the time. Okay, and what that means is I could take that $4.5 million building and I can accelerate the depreciation and use almost all of it to wipe out my taxes in that particular year. Okay, so I had a $2 million tax bill that year and I wiped it all out by using the depreciation of one building. So the way it worked is, let's say I had $1 million in cash sitting in my bank account. Now, I owed 2, but I had $1 million of it and I was gonna have to figure out how to create the other $1 million in order to pay my tax bill. I could either take the $2 million and pay my tax bill, or I could take $1 million, go buy a piece of commercial real estate. Instead of giving it to the IRS, I go put it as a down payment on this $4.5 million building. I get a loan for the remaining balance. I do a cost segregation study on the building that I literally just purchased. I accelerate the depreciation. 100% of it I get to use in 1 year. And depreciation is essentially wear and tear over a period of time.
That's what I was wondering. Where does that come from?
If you Google depreciation, and I'm going to screw this up because my mind's blanking right now. I think it's 37 and a half years. Something like that. And so the building's going to wear and tear over a long period of time. So you can take, so mad I don't remember this right now. Let's say it's 37 and a half years. I take $4.5 million divided by 37 and a half years. That sliver I could take each year for 37 years.
Wow.
Does that make sense? Or I can accelerate the depreciation through this cost segregation study and take all of it in 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay. Or a lot of it in 1 year. Well, I took that $1 million, I put it as a down payment, I bought the building, I did the study, I accelerated the depreciation, I wiped out all of my taxes for that year, and I still own the building. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So instead of giving the IRS the money so they can go bomb third world countries, I put it in my portfolio. It was an investment, and now I still own the building years later. I don't get to use the depreciation anymore because I used it all. But it wiped out my taxes that year. So if you do one power play every single year, like last year, what I did is I bought heavy machinery. There's a company called Equipment Share, and I went and bought $2 million worth of tractors and forklifts and all this machinery because the world needs infrastructure like that.
Yeah.
And the government gives a tax break. And right now, bonus depreciation is at 60% because Biden's a bozo and he changed it from 100%.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. So what are the percentages now?
It's at 60%
60?
right now, but it's going to go back up. Trump's
Yeah.
going to put it back up to 100,
yeah.
hopefully. And so we love Papa Trump.
Yeah.
And so I was able to buy $2 million worth of heavy machinery and write off 60% of it in 1 year, which essentially evaporated my tax bill. Like that, I used the rest of my depreciation from my multifamily and my commercial assets. I still had about $800,000 worth of depreciation taxes that I still owed. I was able to wipe that out by a $2 million purchase of heavy equipment. But it's not like I used $2 million to buy this equipment. I put 10% down, got a business heavy equipment loan, and bought $2 million worth of equipment.
Oh, wow.
So I leveraged my 10% down payment in order to buy $2 million worth of equipment and then just depreciate that by 60%, wiping out my tax bill. I know this is dry stuff, but this is transactional financial engineering that the wealthy do.
Yeah.
That makes it to where it's like, how much faster could you go? If you make $1 million and you get to keep it all, you're going significantly faster than the guy who has to pay 45% taxes on that million. And it's just 1 or 2 power moves away from not paying taxes anymore.
Yeah.
You just need to be taught.
Yeah.
What the moves are. And here's what's cool about the heavy equipment play. This company pays me 15% on my
equipment rental,
on my down payment. So I bought this equipment and my loan on that equipment is, I put a couple $100,000 down. My loan on that equipment is like $25,000 a month. Okay. That company, Equipment Share, has all my equipment. I can log onto a computer. I can see which equipment's being used, where it's being rented.
And they rent it out for you.
They're renting it out for me. They're managing everything. They're paying me 15% on my money, and they're paying that $25,000 payment on my loan.
Wow.
So I went from a negative, losing money by having to pay the IRS all this money, to making 15%.
Yeah.
And at the end of 5 years, they buy all the equipment off of you and give you back your principal investment back. So my couple $100,000 that I put down, the 10% I put down, I'm going to get back in 5 years.
Sounds like an absolute cheat code. Like, why wouldn't everybody just...
Because we're not taught this shit. They don't teach this shit in school. This is why it's like, should I go to college? It's like, I don't know. And if you want to be a doctor or a professional, like needing a license or something, like, I like that. But if your goal is to be an entrepreneur, no, you don't need that shit. I don't use my college degree at all.
Yeah.
But you learn this through mentorship, through networking, through being in the right rooms. So 100 million mastermind experience. I'm in a room with 100 people that paid $100,000 that are all high-level entrepreneurs. And I'm talking to one of them and they're like, what do you do to not pay taxes? It's like a high-level conversation. I'm like, I own all this commercial real estate and stuff. And they're like, cool, I buy equipment. And it's like, now we're trading ideas. And I got introduced to the person that does the deal. And next thing you know, I'm buying heavy equipment.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
That's literally so sick. I remember putting my first 7 figures in a 1099 and had like a couple grand in the bank after it. I was like, oh my God. This is like, because I was like, I figured you make $1 million. Like as a kid, I never even dreamed of making $1 million. And I was like, oh, you make $1 million, you keep $1 million. Then I realized like, oh no, you make $1 million and you realize $1 million.
Yeah. And for anybody watching, Google easy equipment share. You can learn all about the heavy equipment game.
Literally, dude, I'm sitting here just dumbfounded because I was like, oh, if you don't want to pay taxes, just write everything off. But then if you write everything off, you can't buy anything because you have no proof of income.
It's just the game. So like to answer your question, it's like, okay, so I'm making money.
Yeah.
I think the big pivots were realizing that I got to start owning real estate and not just flipping real estate. I got to lateral over out of this shitty income bracket over to where the wealthy play. And then once I got over there, it was like, okay, now I'm starting to own real estate and I'm getting really freaking good at it. And that's when people started coming to me and saying like, how do you do what you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I just do it. And they're like, I'll pay you $10,000 to shadow you for a day. I'm like, what? You're going to pay me just to sit there? And I'm like, what if I don't have much going on that day? They're like, I don't care. I just want to pick your brain for a day.
Yeah.
And that's how Clever Investor, the education business, was born in 2009. my first person showed up and said, I'll pay you 10 grand for one day to just hang with you.
Wow.
And during that day, they were asking all kinds of questions, like what technology stack do you use and how do you send out emails and da-da-da. And I'm just sharing, like I love real estate. I'm talking about real estate all the time. I'm like, this is what I do and this is how I do it, and call this guy. And I started making some connections, and then the guy goes away and I think easy 10 grand. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a month or two later, I get a phone call saying, hey, my day with you changed my life. I want to send somebody else your way. And next thing you know, people started getting referrals started happening, people started coming. And I was like, wow, I always wanted to be a teacher. I love real estate.
Yeah.
You know, everybody around town's calling me the clever investor because I'm real creative with the way I structure deals. What if I start an education company? I wonder if I can get people to like pay me to teach them. And that business changed my life because when you teach, you really love teaching. When you teach, you actually become significantly better.
Yeah, you get better
at what you did.
Yes.
So I tightened up all my systems, all my processes, and I started making a lot more money in my own business because I was now working with other people, and I felt this obligation, like I have to really show up for you. If you're going to pay me 10 G's, I better give you hundreds of thousands of dollars in value.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, a new business is forming, and that business I sold at the end of last year and made a lot of money. And
I have so many questions going through my head. I'm like, oh, gotta keep this one. I'm about to
well,
start writing it down.
Leave that there.
Yeah, dude. Okay. So if you had to keep just one skill that you've acquired,
sales, persuasion, and influence.
Sales,
persuasion, and
influence. Sales, persuasion, and influence.
Yeah, it's the number one skill. Everybody needs it. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get your kids to do some shit, they don't want to do it, or if you're trying to get a big client to sign the dotted line on a real estate contract or something. Yeah. Look, we're all humans, and at the end of the day, there's a million slick one-liners and little things you can do. But if you really understand how to persuade and influence somebody by understanding human emotion and how the psychology works, you can use that skill in any business.
Do you like the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Of course.
I figured. I was like, classic. You're like literally saying it all. I'm like, he's got to love the book. So would you say the sales, persuasion, influence, that's all part? Because I got introduced to you, Eric introduced me to you as like, this guy just kills marketing. Clever investor, he kills real estate.
Goes hand in hand.
I was going to say
marketing
it goes hand
go
in hand. It literally is like essentially the same thing. So, and I was sitting here last night, and I see Kanye dropped a new podcast, and I'm like, the dude is an incredible marketer.
One of the best.
One of the GOAT marketers. Who do you think is the Kanye of marketing in the entrepreneurial world, more so specific to the business world?
That's tough because there's layers to it. Like there's some old school guys that I'm like world-class marketers, like Dean Graziosi, world-class marketer, world-class sales, persuasion, influence. Like the guy downloads from God and just says the right thing at the right moment to the right person and can read the room and the tea leaves. And like, he is a pro. And the first time I ever filmed with him, I was like imposter syndrome. I was the guy holding the camera like, oh shit, I better not screw this up. And I remember it was like my turn or his turn first, and then my turn after him to like do this conversation. And it was like, okay, and go. He didn't say an didn't have a weird pause, just downloaded from God, absolutely murdered his thing. And then he looks at me and I'm like, okay. And then I'm like trying my best to like elevate and do it. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I have so much work to do to get like that, and it took me years, but I eventually, became like that. And so I would say a guy like him, Alex Hormozy, gangster,
literally
super gangster. And, and what's great about Alex is he's the guy next door that's just, he gets it. He's really brilliant with how he does things. And then there's some new guys that are coming out that like Pace Morby.
Okay.
If you've never seen Pace Morby in the real estate space, he is one of the best I've ever seen at building community. So he doesn't need to sell like how I sell. He's not like a direct response marketer pitching on camera or anything like that. He's a master at building a massive online community of people, nurturing that community. So all he has to say is, guys, I'm thinking about doing this pop-up over at this location. Anybody want to show up? And 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people just magically appear. And that's because he'll go live. He uses technology, he uses lives to build a relationship.
Yeah.
like me, I'm using webinars and VSLs and all these like mechanisms to like make a sale, to sell an event or a course or something like that. He's using lives to build all the relationship with them. So that way he doesn't even have to sell at the end. He just says, I got this thing, and everybody rushes and buys it. You get what I'm saying?
1,000%.
And I've never seen somebody do, like, imagine if I was coaching you and I said, start going live more. And you're like what? Like an hour a day? And I'm like, pump those numbers up. You're like 2 hours a day. And I'm like, imagine if you went live for 72 hours straight and you never left the camera. You literally pissed in a bottle underneath the camera view. Like you never moved from that spot. You'd be like, you're fucking nuts. I'm not going to go live for 3 days. Pace goes live for 3 days. He will not leave the fucking camera. And I've never seen anybody do it. But that's why he's making the kind of money he's making. That's why the doors are opening. The breakthroughs are happening. Yeah. Everybody in the world's pivoting, going, who is this guy? That's because he's out working that avenue more than anybody else. And when you are spending so much time watching somebody and interacting with somebody and laughing, and it's really raw, it's not scripted, it's authentically him. And you're seeing his kids run up and spider monkey crawl over him, and he's like, come on the live, come on. You build that relationship subconsciously with that person that you don't even need to do much except for say, let's go. Who wants to go with me?
That's insane. Who do you think the Kanye of marketing in the business world is?
I think one of the best is Grant Cardone.
Cardone?
Yeah. I think that he's done a really good job of, just creating opportunities and kind of, just always being in your posting 10 times a day and showcasing his family, showcasing the business side of things. And he's just been around for a minute, and doing that. And who's the first person that came to my mind? It also probably doesn't help. I was filming him last week, so I thought about that. But he's someone that that does it, and he is here. But I do. That's how we started working together. Is that I constantly saw how clever he was with his marketing. He could talk. He's had some ads over here that he's put on a wig. He's created the Floor Daddy commercial ads. Like he does things that gets people's attention. Clever here, and I think that when it comes to marketing is when you make people laugh and you're entertained, not only being informed about what you're selling. I think you build more rapport. And if you start to look into Clever's content, for me, I feel like I'm laughing 90% of the time.
Yeah, it's my style. Billie Jean's another good one. He's like me and him kind of go
he is
back
very
and forth,
creative.
where you watch his ad and it feels like a fun movie clip, and you just are like, God, I want to buy from this guy because he's making the whole thing fun.
Do you know Chris Cunningham? One of the, I want to say he's one of the founders of ClickUp. We did
he was my roommate.
Yeah? Oh, okay.
Do you know Chris?
We did it
for a couple months. Yeah, we were when I moved to he was the director for Dan's social media agency.
Okay.
And so when I came over to LA, it was the same month or 2 months he was transitioning over.
Okay.
And he showed me around LA. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. So I have another question on my mind. I'm thinking of the young entrepreneurs that are in business and they're cash flowing a couple $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, but they're in a sales role or whatever, maybe even a W-2 role, and they have no ownership within the company they're working in, so they're just burning this cash. You see, especially in the Miami space, you'll see guys, cash flow, but not building any type of equity, no ownership, and then they're buying cars and the watches, the jewelry. Especially, I feel like in the younger demographic. I think there's some older guys that do it too. What are your thoughts on those guys, and mainly guys? I don't see a lot of girls doing it.
Look, I'm not going to give good advice on this because I was the dipshit burning my money too. I just smartened up after that first major implosion, and I pulled back. I overcorrected the other direction afterwards. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to waste any money on anything that doesn't accelerate my business faster. So it's like I started wrong. I corrected over a 4-year period. And then the next decade, I lived below my means. I reinvested every dollar I could. I did what the actual advice is, which is get the fuck out of Miami if you can't control yourself. Go to, I don't know, wherever up north is or wherever, and get serious about your life. Triple down on that skill you have. So if you're great at sales and all that stuff, like triple down, live below your means, save every available dollar, and either invest that money or when you're ready, start a business on your own, because there's only a couple ways to build wealth. And it's not working your way to wealth because of taxes and inflation. You can never outpace. I don't care how much money per hour you're making. You're going to always be in the heavily taxed bucket of life. So you can invest your way there. That's a different tax structure. That's a different play. That's like putting your money to work for you. Or you can entrepreneur your way there. You know, it's like I start companies, scale companies, and, you know, sell companies because I have to leverage a lot of other people's time, money, skills, energy, resources in order to multiply and get to the big leagues.
Yeah.
Because I can't get there with my own time because I run out of time and there's too many things running against me. You get what I'm saying?
1,000%.
And so it's just are you willing to sacrifice? Not say yes to a bunch of dumb shit, but just get laser focused on the one thing that you're good at. Live below your means, triple down on that for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years, which is a long time for a kid in their 20s or whatever that's thinking, well, I want the fucking Lambo. I want to eat a Carbone. I want to look cool. I want the cool watch. I didn't have a fucking, after that first implosion, I didn't buy anything for 10 years. It took me 10 years before I finally bought a cool car.
And how much do you have in the bank, a rough estimate, before you bought a cool car?
Oh, I had tens of millions of dollars by then.
That's insane.
But
I know people buying cars and it's like they take their whole account.
No,
and it's down.
But I mean, I bought a Mansouri Rolls Royce Ghost. I mean, you know, with all murdered out with white interior. I was like, fuck it. Like once I finally got there, I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
But I had so many assets by then. You know, I own probably 800 apartment doors, maybe 850 apartment doors, 30 luxury Airbnbs right now. I have $170 million worth of commercial developments going. I own 4 different companies doing over 10 million.
Do you have like 10 different property managers to like oversee?
Well, I have a whole team, internal team that handle it. And I have a different team for my Airbnb and I have a different team for the apartments are different. So like when I say that, it sounds cooler than what it actually is. I'm in an investment group that buys big boy apartments. So I'm a GP. Like the last apartment we bought was, you know, $137 million.
Yeah.
432 units. It's like big apartment buildings. I can't afford that.
How big do some of those groups get?
We probably have maybe 80 total investors in that pool.
Yeah.
You know, some of us put up millions, some people might put $250,000 or, you know, I think probably the lowest in that is probably, I think $250,000 was the lowest we allowed in that particular one where you had to put 250. You have to be an accredited investor.
Yeah.
You know, and so, those types of deals, I can roll around on social media and be like, I own 800 apartment doors. No, I own a sliver of 800 apartment doors.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars invested in these things, but sounds a lot cooler when you just say, I own $137 million apartment building.
It sounds way cooler. I could talk to you guys literally forever. The one thing I like to wrap up with, kind of fun, is do you guys, some people don't, but do you guys have a favorite movie? You have a favorite movie of like all time, your lifetime?
You go first. You're the creative guy.
Favorite movie?
Don't say The Notebook.
No.
Don't say The Notebook. He's all broke back mountain.
This movie made me fall in love with the desire or interest to visit LA and Las Vegas. Ocean's 11.
Oh, Ocean's 11.
I've seen that
cool,
movie,
bro. Yeah, that's a solid movie.
Hundreds of times throughout. Yeah. And then I had a surreal moment where the opening scene, there's like, little do you know, like the impact of things and how you see them. The opening scene of like one of the movies where Brad Pitt comes out to take the phone call. It's like in front, it's a sidewalk of the building I live now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's right in front of it. Yeah. But yeah, Ocean's 11.
That's hard, bro.
Yeah.
I don't have a favorite movie.
What do you have a favorite?
I don't really have a favorite movie.
TV show?
I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, do I say Forrest Gump or some shit? Like,
some people don't. Some people's like, you know, one guy I really want to interview is Patrick David because he's always talking about movie references, things like that.
Yeah.
But what is there like a book or something that just kind of like, I don't know, like what ignites the kid in you? You know what I mean?
Cocaine. I'm kidding. No. Total joke. I don't need drugs. That would be great. What ignites a kid in you? Ecstasy, bro. You want to have a good time? Do some of that. I don't know. I do have favorite books for sure. I read a lot of books. I think I shared one with you. Yeah, The Greatest Salesman in the World. I read that every year by is it Og Mandino?
I think
OG
so.
Mandino.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like, the book that changed my life is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Because I'm in real estate and assets and liabilities. It was the first time I ever heard about that stuff. And then years later, I go from reading that book. My dad bought me that book when I was in the military. And he handed it to me right before I got shipped out to do a 6-month deployment in the Middle East. And we're there in the Persian Gulf doing 5-knot circles over and over for a month straight. You're going just circles in the middle of the water, shooting Tomahawk missiles over the horizon into Iraq. It was just wild. And it's very boring. And I pulled out the book that he bought me and I was like, I'm going to read this. I ain't got shit to do. And I read it cover to cover in one sit. I could not put it down.
Wow.
And I was so mad that the world had never taught me this shit before.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is it possible? And it was done in a parable, like it's like a story form. So it's like, I really understood it. It was good. And then now I'm in real estate. Years later, I'm throwing this event. Robert Kiyosaki is one of my keynote speakers. We're becoming friends. And, there was this great moment when we were up on stage and he looked at me and he was like, Cody, I've watched your career grow. I didn't even know he was watching me like take off on social and all this stuff. He's like, I've been watching your career for many, many years. I'm very, very proud of you. It feels really good to be able to pass the torch to somebody like you. And I'm just thinking, damn, dude, this was like the man that I read the book that got me excited about real estate when I was in the military before I had ever even gone to lunch with Jeremy and learned about flipping houses. But he planted that seed and tied it all together. And now I'm on stage with this man. He's saying nice things about me. It's just like, God, you could be like me, a bookkeeper making 34 grand a year, and somebody takes you to lunch and says one thing and it changes your life. And then, 15 years later, you're standing on stage with one of your heroes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Just make the call. Like, don't be scared to say yes.
Yeah.
And make that call and say, fuck it. I'm going to be the first one in my family to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that? Because I feel like it's so, hearing you say that, the thing that brings to mind for me is that, especially when you're starting out, you don't have the strength to even understand why you're doing what you're doing a lot of the times. And I think for me, when I started my career, the people closest to me were telling me that I was crazy for doing it because either they had never done it, but then I also realized they just loved me so much that they didn't want to see me lose.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to communicate with me on how to do the thing that I was trying to win at. So they went to a place of love, which typically ties to referring you to get away from it and to remove yourself from it. And I think about that moment a lot in life of like having that kind of banter of going through the motions and fighting through the fight, and also reminding yourself of like, hey, I'm doing this for me. And sometimes the people closest to you don't need to know why. You just need to do it, because then there comes a day. It was for me, my sister. She, on the record, I don't know if she ever would agree to this, but when I told her I made the decision to start photography and videography, she's like, you have a college degree. You've done so many internships in New York, and you're taking pictures at a gym. And then in that moment, I was like, dang, she's right. But she wasn't seeing the vision that I had based off someone in my life who was telling me, the same person who was hiring me, literally told me when I had no portfolio that I was the best in the world. And he was casting such a positive vision in my life that I listened to that and I leaned into that, and I just kept going and going and going. And so I think a lot of the times, especially when you're in a career that can feel scary or can like uncertainty, when you have the right people next to you showing up for you in different ways, those doors start opening and those breakthroughs start happening. But it doesn't come unless you take that leap of faith. Like I have to, like for me, it was like, always just bet on yourself. Take the leap of faith.
Yeah.
Because worst comes to that worst, at least you tried it.
Yeah.
And then something I've learned even about myself, I became so curious about so many different careers, is because I didn't know how it was going to play out for me. And so I would try, it didn't work out, did the next thing. Try it, didn't work out, did the next thing. And that's when you start, I believe, living your truth and living life.
Yeah.
Like trying the things and going through the motions and going through the rough parts. Everyone, I think a lot of it too, especially on social media, is glorifying the good. But it's like a lot of the times it sucks. And a lot of the times, those are the moments that no one talks about. But then you realize how good life can be because you decide to keep on going. That's good. And I think, I just think about, especially with his story, I didn't know half of that, by the way. So I thought that was really cool to hear someone who is going through life still today, and I think we all learn our own way of like fighting a fight, but you learn to not only respect the fight of what you're going to, but have confidence in yourself of like, hey, I've gone through something like this just in a different phase of my life, and I've seen the light, and so it's like there's no other choice. You know, just got to keep going and keep doing the thing.
Read Ed Milet's book, The Power of One.
Yes.
That's such a clutch thought to realize, like, it's not like you have to do this. You get to do this. You are the one.
Yeah.
The one in your family that gets the opportunity to actually make the biggest change, generational change for yourself in the future. So when you start thinking like, God, I'm privileged to be here. To be alive at this moment in time within this place where I'm getting to do these cool things and meet these cool people. It shifts from work to like, I don't need to take a vacation because I love what I do. I love being here. I'm grateful for these moments, even the tough, boring, monotonous time, which is what entrepreneurship is. It's not the glamorous shit you see on Instagram. It's the long stints of like feeling no progress, of just monotonous, repetitive bullshit tasks. And really, as entrepreneurs, we're firefighters.
Yeah.
That's really what we are. And like, you don't really understand that until you start your own business and you fail pretty quickly. You're going to run out of resources, run out of hope, run out of time, run out of this. And you realize like your team that you're building, they don't bring you all the best shit. They bring you the problems.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, what do I do here? And you become this professional firefighter where you're jumping from problem to problem to problem. This is why Elon Musk is so powerful. You watch a guy like him, he does not manage like normal people. This is like the next layer. I wish, and I study this, a lot of CEOs should learn from this man and mirror how he operates within his companies, because he's coming in very, very fast and saying, what's the number one biggest problem we have right now? And then he immediately attacks it with all his resources as fast as he can possibly attack it. And imagine if you do that once a quarter, your team and everybody starts realizing like, we can do this. Like, this is the biggest problem we have in our world. And then everything aligns to fixing that as fast as humanly possible. At other companies, you don't have a CEO coming in and saying, like at X, he was like, he just buys this thing and he's like, I think we have too many servers, too many expenses, too many this, too many that. And you got a whole panel of middle managers and stuff saying, well, we can kind of wind down like this and it might take us a year or two and we're going to need to throw all these resources at it. And what happens if we, go too fast and shit fucks up? He's like, no, I think we could do it in like weeks, not years. And they're like, you can't, it's impossible. And have you ever heard the story? He's literally flying in a plane.
It's the day before. I know the story. It's the day before Christmas.
In Christmas. And he's like, turn the fucking plane around. We're going to the server farm. And he fights his way into this server farm and asks one of the people he's with, or the security guard, for a knife. And he cuts the cord. And that was it. He said, great, our job is done. Let's move on to the next big problem. He didn't worry about years of all these people talking and spreadsheeting out what's going to happen.
Yeah.
He just does it. And that's how he operates. And so, you have to get used to being able to be that firefighter, be grateful to, like, the way I look at it is like, I don't want little problems. Bring me the biggest fucking problem we have right now and let me tack it.
Yeah.
And when you approach business like that and you realize, like, I float into work, I do cool shit, I attack big problems come with big paydays, let's go.
Yeah.
Then everything shifts and you're like, man, what am I not capable? I'm capable of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's keep growing. Let's keep going, like doing the bigger, better, crazier things and get out of this little shit. That's why I like Grant Cardone. He's at scale, right? His mind is scaling 10x, 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 10x. Everybody should take something of that and say, if you're small, you're going to die. You have to get big.
Evolution, the growth, the chase of things. And I think, it's having that unwavering faith and commitment to do the thing. But I also believe it's just as important, you take care of yourself and everything else will follow. Yeah. And having that mindset and that strength to do that. The resilience.
That's why health and wealth have a good connection too.
You guys were doing the 75 hard right now?
He is. Yeah.
You're doing the 75 hard? Yeah, I saw you on the boats doing push-ups.
11 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
So also, so I'm very, I was not vocal about it, but I'm very vocal about it. I'm 11 months. This month will be 12 months.
Come on.
February 23rd, made the decision to stop drinking, smoking, soda, fast food.
Let's go.
Let's go. That deserves a round of applause right there.
Let's go.
And I did all that. You know, when I look back on it, my biggest thing was my faith, like my relationship with God.
Yeah.
It was just not there because I was numbing it with what I was choosing to put into my body.
Yeah.
And then I realized I also wasn't having the base relationship with my love life. And then I realized, wait, that derives from not showing up the way I should be showing up for my family.
Yeah.
And with my mom and the people closest to me. And then I also tied that to then realizing, wait, do I feel comfortable taking off my shirt and with myself? I don't. So it was a relationship with fitness.
Yeah.
That I made that decision of like, I want this version of me that I believe is there and I kind of see it, but I don't know how. And just attacking it like every single day. When I first started, made that declaration of like, not even declaration, I was just posting working out. I was working out like 2-3 times a day for months. The people closest to me that were trainers would literally text me, yo, you got to slow down. Yo, you're going to burn yourself out. Yo, you're doing too much. And I knew at that point what I was doing was for me, and I found my why. And I was like, I'm not trying to impress someone. I'm doing this for me. Because if I don't change, no one's going to do it for me. And I just allowed, I always think of like the horse metaphor when they're in racing, they have blinders.
Yeah.
My blinders were up.
Yeah.
I listened. I wasn't disrespectful. I said, hey, thanks. I appreciate you looking out for me because that's a form of love. They're taking care of the people. But in reality, I knew that wasn't serving me.
Yeah.
And I needed to do the thing that was going to convert me and change me as quick as possible. And it was this obsession with just life of like, all right, like I was really obsessed with like living and going all out with work and staying up really late. I was like, what if I just converted that and replaced that with doing all the hard things first? Yeah. And then being able to live the life that now I genuinely feel like I'm living life. Like there's no, I feel alive. I feel reinvigorated again. And I feel like if you met me 3 years ago to today, that person's dead.
I remember you showed me the picture, bro. Just your physical evolution looks incredible.
Yeah.
Like, this was me. And I was like, that's not you.
Yeah.
No, this was me. And I'm like, that is not you, bro.
It's a sad fact that 53% of men in America cannot do a single pull-up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if you know this guy. His name's Cameron Haynes. He's a massive bow hunter. His son just broke the world record for
it might be higher than
that. It's like 9,200.
I want to know now.
In a day.
Wow.
In 24 hours, he did. What
percentage of men in the United States cannot do a pull-up?
Probably higher.
I think it's higher.
I think it's easier right now.
I want to say maybe 83%. Something.
I think it's 10 times easier right now to be a millionaire than to have your six-pack visible.
80% of men cannot do a pull-up.
So I'm talking about pull-ups. Cody here, when you start to, my biggest scare also, the reality of it is when you start something new, your friends start to dissipate, the ones that were doing the things that you were doing because you're trying to do something that's different. Yeah. And that really, it honestly bothered me because then there was a lot of people that I thought that I was scared that I was going to lose. And then I just had this epiphany with my faith of like, wait, what if those same type of people are just in the gym? What if they're just in the sauna? What if those are the same type of people cold plunging? And one of those people was Cody. So for me, he didn't know this, but at the beginning, he was posting his own personal health transformation and getting locked in and his being in the cold plunge and things like that. And also motivating me of like, if this is someone who I aspire to become, not only as a father, but someone who's also living a life of integrity and business and at a high level, how am I not doing the same? Yeah. And one of those things was he was posting doing pull-ups. Yeah. And I had a friend of mine, he's like, dude, when was the last time you did a pull-up? And I was like, I couldn't tell you. And he was doing 100 a day. And that's what got me locked in for a whole month. I was doing 10 to 20 a day. Yeah. Whereas then the cool, like he doesn't know this, even like 3 days, we posted a workout video today. I was like, the inner child in me, I was like, yo, like literally the version of me a year ago thought it was crazy of him doing 100. And now we're side by side, like being able to do it. Yeah. And I share that because it's like a moment of not only like for me, like, oh, I did it, but the idea of like when you're stepping into a new life, the people that are meant to be there will be there right next to you. Yeah. And everyone that's not, it's a blessing because they're not supporting you. They're not putting you on. They're not pushing you. Yeah. And I think that's how life should be. You should be standing side by side with people that are either you're aspiring to be like them or they inspire you to do the work. Yeah. Everyone else, I'm good. Don't allow that to distract you. Don't allow that to get in your head. And and for me, that's how I've seen life now of like, if if that person doesn't scare me next to me to do more, then I'm just that saying you hear it all the time, the wrong room, but I feel like it's just the wrong moment.
Yeah.
Like you got to switch it up. You got to move. You got to go do this. Got to go do that. And that's what's motivated me to like keep on going. It's like the evolution of like growth and just not stopping.
Fire, bro.
Yeah.
Absolute fire.
Beast mode.
Literally beast mode.
Day 22, 75 hard.
Dude, if we could squeeze in one little thing of the razzle dazzle story with the weight.
Oh yeah.
At the Frisella, we'll wrap up with that.
Okay. Yeah. I was telling you that yesterday on Eric's yacht. You know, I'm like a nerdy entrepreneur. I love like all the details, like what makes a business really grow and scale. And you know, we were talking about culture, right? Because it's hard to build culture in an organization. And I've done it pretty well at Clever. I'm doing it again at Floor Daddy right now, but nothing at this level. You know, if you guys have never heard of Andy Frisella, First Form, what's his new podcast? He had MFCEO.
Yeah.
What's the new one?
The CTI.
Anyway, I forget the name of his new podcast. But anyway, First Form is a nutritional company, massive, massive, one of the biggest companies out there. And I got an opportunity to go to Andy's office and we were hanging out. And he's got this ridiculous gym. Like it's goals. Like you look at his world that by the way, he's my favorite entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not looking at like the Elon Musks of the world, Andy is the status of like that guy figured it out.
Yeah.
He's playing the game at a very high level. He's building a company worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. He's in control of it all. It's family oriented. He's detail oriented. He's killing it on podcasts. He's killing it. Like everything he touches, he's just locked the fuck in.
Creating serious impact.
And he's the one who created 75 Hard.
Yeah.
So it's like the amount of people he's impacting is crazy. And he's just a solid motherfucker. So anyway, I'm at First Form and we're doing this tour and I brought 25 people that paid me $100,000 to mentor them, like part of a mastermind.
Yeah.
And so we're there and I'm touring them and I'm friends with Andy. So he was gracious enough to like let us come in and behind the scenes tours and all this stuff. And I'm looking at his gym and I pick up, he has all these dumbbells and each one of his dumbbells has his little First Form logo on everything. And I pick one up and I'm like, dude, someday I'm going to have a gym just like this. I'm going to have my logo on my gym equipment and it's going to be super dope. Like he's totally inspiring me right now. And I put it down and I'm like walking away and I see this kid running across the hall from the other side of the gym, probably in his early 20s, full speed sprint all the way over, comes behind me, picks up the dumbbell, turns it 1/4 of an inch of a turn, like barely, like he turned it from this to this. Like it was nothing, like steps back, stares at it, kind of measures it and then runs back to his desk. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, that was an odd experience. And I look at Andy, I'm like, what the hell was that? And he said, every single person here in this building realizes that the experiencing that you're having when you walk into this gym and you're kind of like, whoa, it's perfect. You don't even realize that it's perfect. Subconsciously, it's just perfect. And you're just so impressed. He goes, the reason you felt that way is because we give a shit about every single detail in our world. We call it the razzle dazzle. We want every customer's experience to be so on point, so detail oriented, so over the top impressive that they can't ever forget. When they order a product from First Form, like they'll send you a love note in the product thing. And they'll literally go to your social media before they ship the product. You could be a first-time customer, not a big social influencer or anything. You could have 10 followers, but they're going to come to your social. They're going to scour all your different socials. They're going to see where you vacation and what you're into and what your family looks like and where you work and all that stuff. And they're going to write a personalized long love note. It had to take 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to write this note of, hey, I saw you vacation, and I saw you drank a peanut butter smoothie and I threw in some peanut butter banana extra things for you and a t-shirt and a hat and then this and that. And your kids look like they're doing good. It was very personalized. They do it with their customers. They do it inside their facility. And he said, that's razzle dazzle. That's building culture where every person is in alignment in an organization. And they know that 1/4 inch of a turn makes all the difference between us being good and us being great. Mm-hmm. And I took that and I said, that's the gold standard of culture building in an organization where the 20-year-old that probably has worked there for 6 months is hauling ass to make sure that the next person that walks in that gym has the same experience that I had.
That's it.
I'll tell you a story that he's impacted me that he has no idea. It's that when I visited, I've been lucky enough to go to First Form headquarters multiple times due to Dan's relationship. And when they opened it for the opening, I had seen how clean it was, and I thought the same thing. I thought, wow, this place is immaculate. And I was like, oh, it's probably just because it's the opening. Second or third time we come around, I'm in the bathroom. It's immaculate, like spotless. They have all the little things. This guy comes after using the restroom, washes his hands, and splashes kind of like into the middle. He steps away, grabs double paper towels, wipes it clean, wipes it underneath clean. The top of it, looks over at me, asking me if I'm okay, if I'm good. Complete stranger that works. I'm a stranger to him. He works there. And I walk away thinking to myself, like, that was incredible.
Yeah.
I told Andy that story, and he tells me that's the standard.
Yeah.
And he goes, he's like, I don't even want to know who it is because that's how it always should be. I'm not thinking because that's how we have it. That lesson, I do it all the time. Even today, if you would have seen, and I share that moment because sometimes there's moments in life that you could either take it as like an appreciation or apply it to your life. And I think a lot of the like entrepreneurship and life is like seeing moments and people who are doing great things to emulate that and set a new standard for yourself. And to consecutively like always do that over and over and over again. And, you know, First Form, Andy Frisella, and what they're doing is nothing short of amazing and inspiring.
Let's go.
Razzle dazzle, baby.
Razzle dazzle. I'm going to change the podcast name to Razzle Dazzle.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's a good standard.
Right? That's fire. Well, I thank you guys both for your time today. Where can people find you? Where do we want to drive the audience? Where can people find you, Roger?
At the content CEO.
Content CEO.
Yeah.
Most gangster content creator on the planet.
Let's go.
At Clever Investors, my big page if you're into real estate. But if you're into more personal development, just entrepreneurship talk, more personal relationship with me, it's at official Cody Sperber on Instagram. I'm pretty, in it every day. I'm posting like my thoughts and stuff like that. I do social for like 30 minutes a day.
Fire.
That's it. I don't really fuck with it the rest of the day, but those 30 minutes are fire. Like I'm leaning in on it. I'm sharing my personal thoughts and wins and losses and showing the good stuff. So I would love to interact with you guys, especially if you're young and you're just getting started.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, let's say you are listening to this, you happen to be an accredited investor. Let's put some of your money to work. I have a fund called Clever Capital Fund. We're always raising capital and partnering with other accredited investors, doing single tenant, triple net lease real estate development, big commercial deals in Arizona. I got more projects than I do capital, phenomenal projects. I'm buying things for $2 million, selling them for $4 million, 18 months later. Like these are big spreads, amazing deals. The back end buyers are companies that you've heard of, the Chipotles of the world, the Salad and Goes, the Chick-fil-A's, where we kind of niche out in like drive-through spaces, Circle K's, stuff like that. Those are my back end clients.
Yeah.
And those companies, they don't want to mess with land entitlements. They don't want to mess with, the development side of things. They just want to run their businesses. And so they lean on developers like me that come in and take the raw land, re-entitle it, rezone it, split the lots, move things around, get the city approval, and then, they'll either build it or we'll build it for them. And those are very, very profitable deals. I have a phenomenal team with lots of expertise. So if you have lazy capital laying around and you want to learn more about how Clever Capital Fund works, just go to clevercapitalfund.com and check us out.
Let's go. Thank you both again. Seriously. Have a blessed day. Let's go. Peace.